Spec Ops: The Line is a third-person military-themed shooter with a focus on a dark and mature narrative, which follows a squad of Delta Force operators into Dubai on a rescue mission. The setting of Dubai really influences the style of combat in Spec Ops: The Line. The unique architecture that's there does some really interesting things with our combat space.
We draw a lot of inspiration of the way things were built there, like the scale is just really over the top. And as an art team, we use that to translate it into our game environment. So all the spacing is bigger, everything is a little bit more grand and spectacular.
The city's been covered with millions of tons of sand. It really provides sort of a very new and fresh combat experience. One of the elements that's very interesting is the fact that you're quite often walking on what you perceive to be solid ground, but actually you may be walking on a dune that's covering a 30-story skyscraper. During combat, you have to constantly be thinking about where you're standing and where you're located, and you may even tumble through a skylight in a building into an entombed space that's been covered by sand.
Throughout the game, the player encounters opportunities to leverage the power of the sand to help him basically to kill enemies or open new pathways. You basically see sand piled up behind a window, and you shoot the window and sand comes pouring out.
So there's a number of locations in the game where out of the narrative grew an opportunity for us to let the player make a choice.
This is a test.
Yes, it is. The civilian on the right stole water. A capital offense. The soldier on the left was sent to apprehend him, which he did, killing the man's family in the process.
So these are not binary choose A to do the good thing or choose B to do the bad thing types of choices that are presented to the player.
When you make a decision in the game, what we wanted to achieve is that you sit there and you really question your own moral and you question your own values.
Wow. What happens in Dubai stays in Dubai.
After a battle in Spec Ops: The Line, there's rarely a situation where all of the enemies are dead. They're typically laying on the battlefield, bleeding out in horrific pain and agony. The player can choose to react to that in a number of ways, and one of the ways that he can do that is by utilizing executions and executing those enemies.
Since Spec Ops: The Line is a realistic shooter and you're up against humans with guns, it was always very important for us to make sure that there is enough variety in gunplay and in enemy behavior. So we created all those different enemy types to make sure that there's always enough variety and fun to fight those guys.
It was too close, Walker! Take this guy out!
That all of them?
I think we're clear.
What about the civilians? 33rd get away with any of them?
Yeah, they did.
The campaign in Spec Ops: The Line is heavily influenced by the people who are left there in Dubai after sandstorms have ravaged the region. This element of survival in a combat scenario permeates into the gameplay itself. Many of the conflicts in the campaign actually have to do with those survivors and these elements of them trying to provide for their families and protect them from the situation that they found themselves in. This element of civilians being found in the middle of combat scenarios adds a lot of tension to the combats in Spec Ops: The Line.
The CIA doesn't start when it can't finish.
Well, now's the time to prove it, because I'm not telling you shit.
No! What the hell?
What we wanted to achieve was that the player really not only makes his decisions as the character, but also as himself, as a person, as the human in front of the console.
We hope that this invites players to think about what wartime scenarios are really like for the people that are trapped within their confines.
Leader of a Delta Recon squad who's sent into Dubai after the city's been ravaged by these cataclysmic sandstorms. You're looking for Colonel John Conrad, the commander of the damned 33rd, who went in to help evacuate the city. As they were evacuating, this massive sandstorm hit and everyone in the city was believed dead. 6 months later, a mysterious kind of broken radio signal is picked up coming out of Dubai, and so you're sent in to see if there are any survivors left.
Conrad's still alive. I think he is. I know he'd agree with me.
Tracks end here. Guess this is the nest.
Walker is a bit of a mystery. This is a commander, a professional soldier. he has to keep this little bit of emotional distance from Lieutenant Adams and Sergeant Lugo, your squad mates, because he has to sometimes give them orders where they are going to possibly go to their death.
Gotta be smart about this.
Okay, Ghoul's right there, and I got a clean shot.
You open fire now, the civilians are dead. Does that mean nothing to you?
Lieutenant Adams is Walker's second in command. He is also the demolition expert and the heavy gunner for your squad. Sergeant Lugo, on the other hand, is a rookie. This is his first mission as a Delta operator. The relationship between him and Walker and him and Adams is going to be very different and evolve differently throughout the game.
Christ, these soldiers were massacred.
Nah, look how they're lined up. This was an execution.
Colonel John Conrad is, in many ways, this larger-than-life soldier. This is a man who is both a brilliant strategist, but also the best example of a soldier that he can possibly be.
Cover me, I'm reloading!
The characters in Spec Ops are not static. These are not going to be the same people that you meet at the beginning of the game by the time you reach the end of the game.
Begin.
What happens to them and what happens to you is similar to what has happened to Dubai. The sandstorm has stripped away everything that they thought they were to who they really are.
We're gonna keep at this until you tell me what I want to know.
The moral choices in Spec Ops are different from what players have come to expect out of a video game. They are not between A or good, B or bad. These choices are about holding a mirror up to yourself.
Fuck it, I'm taking the shot.
Wait for your orders, Sergeant.
We chose to set Spec Ops in Dubai for two reasons. One, this is not meant to be a game about global conflicts. You are not fighting other nations, you are not fighting terrorists with a nuke. So we didn't want people to be thinking about any conflicts that are currently happening or maybe have happened in the recent past. Also, Dubai is a metaphor in a lot of ways for what the player and the characters are experiencing. This is a city where there should not have been a city, but men with money and power just came in and said, I'm going to build whatever I want. And then the sandstorms came, the desert retook it, and nature said, no, just because you want to do this does not mean it can happen, does not mean it should happen.
The CIA doesn't start when it can't finish.
Well, now's the time to prove it, because I'm not telling you shit.
No! What the hell?
The inspiration that we had was not necessarily to recreate a character from a movie or a book that necessarily people liked, but instead to create real characters that felt like they were actual people, soldiers that were with you on this journey and not just tools that you were giving orders to and commanding around a battlefield.
All insurgents wishing to surrender, please report to your nearest outpost for processing.
We had many military advisors on the game who were constantly going over the script, checking it for accuracy, and also at the same time performing our mocap so that we had our characters moving like soldiers actually would move. Spec Ops is a game about who we are as gamers, and that's where the title of the game comes in. Spec Ops, the line. That line between expectation and reality. Who these soldiers think they are and who they actually are. Who we as gamers think we are when we choose a game, and ultimately who we actually are as we play that game.